This is an issue that I've been warning the party about for a long time, that young people have been increasingly concerned about the status of human rights of Palestinians for years now, and it has been growing and growing. And I think what young people really want to see is an assertive stance from this administration.
Yes, that was AOC, raspy voice and all. She must have been partying at anti-Semitism. She's coming out. It's the human rights violations of Israel that she's talking about. Not Hamas. Not the radical Islamic terrorist jihadis. Not the genocidal crazy boy next door. No, it's the Jews. They're the problem. The Democrats have really turned this into a thing, haven't they? Yesterday, the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht in Germany, the Democrats and their Hamas allies were out on the streets of America pulling kids out of schools to chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. A lot of dementia out there. And the Democrat Party really owns this dementia. And the genocide thing, it's back. Who's pushing genocide? Well, the Democratic Party is, because, as you know, the Democratic Party isn't. Yeah, marches in the streets and school walkouts yesterday to commemorate Kristallnacht. Is that what the Democrat Party said? They said, come out and join us to celebrate the anniversary of Kristallnacht as the attempted genocide continues. Amazing stuff. So we do have a lot of stuff. Jewish billionaire Henry Suica quits Columbia University board over abhorrent threats to Jews on campus and heinous anti-Semitic slogans beamed on the University of Pennsylvania buildings. They just wanted to keep up with the George Washington University in Washington, D.C., where the same thing was accomplished by genocidal anti-Semites. It's a big trend in the Democrat Party. If you're Jewish and you're a Democrat, please seek help. Oh, speaking of which, a Jewish student, another Ivy League school, MIT, a Jewish student went to the administrators and said, hey, I keep getting threatened and there's all this anti-Semitism on campus. And at MIT, they told her to seek therapy. They told her the Poison Ivy League, as it's now known. Remarkable stuff. New York City student walkouts. Hundreds walk out of classrooms to protest Israel-Hamas war on the side of Hamas. NBC News New York is reporting. And this extraordinary story, I talked about this yesterday. The photojournalists, freelance photojournalists from the region, from Israel, from the Gaza. Turns out that the photojournalists hired by CNN and the New York Times, the Associated Press, and the Reuters news agency were in on the massacre on October 7th, and they went in. They were kind of embedded with the terrorist group. You know how in the past, the United States, we invented embedding journalists with U.S. military for military actions. It's about accountability here. In Gaza, it's about glorifying the massacre. And it turns out these guys, you see the picture of one of the photographers making out with one of the Hamas leaders. Not making out in the old-fashioned way, but just a grab the head and big smooch on the on the cheek, loving one another. And these photojournalists in the employ of the New York Times, Reuters, the Associated Press, and CNN, well, they were embedded for the massacre, and they still haven't made public a lot of their photos and videos because, they're really in the employ of Hamas and CNN and the New York Times and the Associated Press and the Reuters news agency. But pay no attention to that. Well, in Israel now, the government is saying that those journalists are on their hit list. And that means on their list to be killed because they said they're going to seek out and kill every Hamas ghoul involved in the October 7th attack. And yesterday, they pretty much announced, and we include those photojournalists on our list of people to be killed. And so that's going to really upset the people at CNN. It's kind of funny. They're on Columbus Circle in New York. They want to tear down that statue of Columbus, too, because all of civilization is under attack. And the left and the jihad have joined hands. They're walking hand in hand, kissing. They have flowers in the other hand, and they're skipping through the high grass, and they're very happy. They're on a date. Amazing stuff. Yeah. Journalists occupy New York Times building in protest of newspapers' Gaza coverage. There is blood on the hands of the editorial board, they say, because they're not pro-Hamas enough. The world has gone mad. You may have noticed this. And I was texting with a friend today, and he's like, how do you not lose your mind? How do you do this every day? And I said, well, I try to put it in context and in historical context. But this time we're in now certainly needs a lot of historical context because, The Detroit police have still not named the person that they arrested in the murder of a Jewish community leader in Detroit, synagogue leader Samantha Wall, who was stabbed to death at her home. And they've arrested a suspect, but they're not going to tell us who it is because it's their little secret. They're not going to tell us. Why are you not going to tell us? Well, it might fan the flames of Islamophobia. And the police chief is saying, that's an irrational fear of Islam. And the police there saying, well, we're not going to say whether it has anything to do with her being Jewish or the political situation today because it's our secret and we're not going to tell you. So, also a story in the New York Times today. They're very excited. Germany remembers Kristallnacht at a fraught moment, the New York Times headline. And in Germany, they're remembering Kristallnacht, but not like they're remembering it here because it's a reanimation, a recreation. They're breathing life back into the Kristallnacht of old. And not a coincidence, but kind of fun, the Fox News people, Jewish Americans turning to firearms to protect themselves, their families, as anti-Semitism surges. What's this? Uh-oh. Jews with guns? That ought to put the fear of God into the jihadis. But the jihadis are loose. We got all this going on here. You see there's a radical left Democrat mayor in Oregon that has a daughter that goes to school at USC, the University of Spoiled Children. And the daughter, Angela Burney, is the mayor. And her daughter was caught on video tearing down all the pinned up, one-page posters of the hostages in Israel. And she's caught tearing them down in her gym shorts and gym shirt and looks like she might be a softball player. And she's tearing them down. She's a PhD candidate, a PhD student at the University of Spoiled Children. But, her radical left-wing Oregon mayor mommy is fine with this, I think. I think she's fine. And madness everywhere. And these journalists, they're now on Israel's hit list, which is not a list I'd want to be on, I've got to say. Amazing stuff. And Joe Biden is in big trouble, according to the polls. But he doesn't believe the polls. He believes other polls that say that he's doing fine. And Peter Doocy, Fox News, had a chance to ask Joe Biden yesterday about the polls. And he said, you're reading the wrong polls. You mean the New York Times poll and the CNN poll? Are those the wrong polls? Because this is not the kind of poll that the Biden family normally likes. That's a stripper poll reference to Hunter Biden, but never mind that. So CNN poll, majorities say, that's a majority of us, American people say, no chance that they would vote for Joe Biden in 2024. Joe Biden might have an accident real soon because the Democrat Party really likes power, and it looks like he could be a threat to their power. Remarkable stuff. Also in Michigan, that's one of our 50 states, Michigan Township. They've got this the Green Township, I think it's called. The Republican board there invited a Chinese communist company to come in and build a giant factory that will build batteries with toxic elements that they steal from Africa and Asia. The Chinese communists do. And they're going to put this factory in. Well, the entire local government was thrown out in a recall election, and new people are in. They're going to put the kibosh on this China electric vehicle battery plant because the people and the Republicans have, they're the people that said, oh, we'll invite because it'll be jobs and great economic news for our community. And they all got thrown out of office, which is great. And they're all Republicans, and they've all been thrown out of office, and that's great because they were in the midst of doing something terrible, and they've been replaced, and the townspeople are rejoiceful, which is nice. Also, today is the 248th birthday of the United States Marine Corps, which is a wonderful thing, the greatest fighting force that God ever created, and just wonderful. The birthday, I celebrated my first Marine Corps birthday in 1990 with, I believe, the 1st Marine Division in the deserts of Saudi Arabia near Khafji, and it was up close to the border with Kuwait, and it was great. And they had flat like a sheet cake, a sheet cake, and on a stretcher, and brought it out in a Marine Corps hymn and all that great stuff. And but today is the birthday of the United States Marine Corps, 248 years, founded in a tavern, which is a wonderful thing. And the great United States Marine Corps, happy birthday to the United States Marine Corps, and we're not done with that yet. Also, speaking of Democrats, though, a Georgia man has been arrested after he threatened to murder Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And he's under arrest, and he wanted to do terrible things and to shoot her with a rifle and murder her, and he called, and he's failed the IQ test, that's for sure. And it's the second Georgia member of Congress that has been threatened with death, I think this month, right? This month. But the lunatic threatening to murder Marjorie Taylor Greene under arrest. He doesn't like her because he's a Democrat, and the Democrat Party inspires a lot of hatred and violence. Violence and hatred. But I saw the FBI is really worried about white supremacy or something like that. Okay. And can anybody point to a white supremacist crime, a murder, a threat, or anything like that? Because I'm still, Charlottesville, what year was that? What decade was that? Because that was a terrible thing. A mentally ill young man crashed his car into a crowd. But he wasn't inspired by the Republican Party. So we got that Georgia man arrested, accused of threatening to kill Marjorie Taylor Greene. And he's not alone, because the Democrats, there's a lot of crazy out there. And she's the second Republican member of Congress from Georgia this week who had to shut down their district office after threats of violence. But you're not going to see that on CNN or in the Washington Post. You're not going to hear it from our FBI director, Christopher Wray. Joe Biden's not going to be asked about it. Cringe Jean-Pierre is not going to be asked about it because they're not asked about such things. Speaking of, people who need people, New York man who saved woman from subway mugging by scaring off would-be robber with warning shots has been arrested in New York. A woman is being mugged by a giant, crazy, mentally disturbed, homeless man. And another man, a normal man, was there. And he saw what was happening, and he fired his pistol, scaring off the would-be robber, saving the woman from the crime. This is in Queens, New York, where if you're looking for a queen, that's where you go to look for your queen, right? Well, like in Coming to America. And so he fired, he had a handgun, and he's been arrested. Say he opened fire on a subway platform Tuesday night. That scared off a would-be mugger, who himself is facing attempted robbery charges. But let's not forget who the bad guy is here. The bad guy is the guy that stopped the robbery. He's the villain in Democrat land, because in Democrat land, everything is different and nothing makes sense. So we got that one for you. And have you heard about the 25-year-old guy from Wichita, Kansas, who went to Africa and dug 100 wells, giving fresh water to about 500,000 people, saving the lives of children? What about the children? We only care about the children in Gaza because they'll grow up to be murderers. And it turns out that the 25-year-old from Wichita, Kansas, digging 100 wells, that's racist. And he's the villain of the story because, you know why, Michael? Because Democrats. That's why. We are at 888-630-9625. We got a lot more. There's a war in Gaza, and there's a war here in the United States because the Democrats, and they're threatening to kill all kinds of people, and the Democrats are unhappy with Joe Biden because they think he might not win. President Trump did an interview with Univision, or Univision if you prefer. We've got lots and lots of news for you today. And we also like talking to you. We're at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Ah, yes. It's a mad world, isn't it? It's important to know who the crazy people are, though, and the left, well, we'll get into that. It is a time for choosing, and I see a lot of people making the wrong choice for a variety of reasons: indoctrination, brainwashing, low IQ, living is easy with eyes closed, misunderstanding all you see, to quote the Beatles. Let's take a phone call, and we have a lot of audio. Also, I have this great writer with a British person, but he's a great writer. Anyway, with The Spectator, and he had a bit of the Spectator in England magazine, thoughtful conservative publication, and posted a little video on how things are going in Great Britain. And I think it may raise an eyebrow with you because it's not just happening here. But right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Bob, listening on the WMAL app, calling from just south of Chicago, Illinois. Bob, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, it's really great to hear you again. You're my favorite guy. In fact, I went and saw you when you were in Tinley Park. I don't know if you remember me or not, but I'm the guy that you signed my T-shirt for me.
I do remember that. Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. With a Sharpie. You know, it was a Sharpie.
Yes, a Sharpie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh gosh. No. Anyway, Chris, I wanted to. I just heard you talking earlier here about this Chinese factory plant that was trying to go in somewhere.
Yeah, Michigan.
And in Michigan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just found out here about a week ago that because I live south of Chicago, and the town north of me in Manteno, it's a small town, an abandoned Kmart warehouse, which is over 1.5 million square foot. They're putting in one of those right there.
A Chinese EV battery plant. Well, Bob, hang in there because I'm going to tell you about the situation in Michigan coming up. CBS News is all spun up because their headline today is unprecedented surge, in quotation marks. Get a load of this. In anti-Arab, anti-Muslim bias incidents reported in U.S. since Israel-Hamas war advocacy group says. And I saw the headline and I read it to Michael Piercy. And I said, who do you think it is? So it's CARE. It's CARE. A radical group, a radical front group. The Council on American Islamic Relations, and CBS News goes right to them, and they come up with these phony numbers. Hey, in Detroit, have the police announced the name of the murderer that slashed the Jewish synagogue leader to death at her home? Oh, no, they haven't? Well, maybe later today. Close of business Friday, maybe. How about the situation in Thousand Oaks, California, where the 69-year-old Jewish man waving an Israeli flag was clubbed over the head, went to the ground, slammed his head on the concrete, died the next day in the hospital. Anything on that? How about the coffee shop in Manhattan that 6 employees quit and they had to, get his mom, and neighbors showed up to help keep it's Kristallnacht in America, and the Democrat Party is behind it. And CBS News is focused on CARE. Now, there was that 6-year-old boy that was murdered by that mentally ill guy in Illinois, and that's a terrible thing. But the White House is focused on Joe Biden. Oh, we're going to combat Islamophobia. Yeah, okay. How about Naziphobia? Is there a Naziphobia problem in the United States of America? Because there's a lot of Nazis on college campuses and things. All right, but Bob was on the line calling from south of Chicago and talked about building a Chinese EV battery plant, electric vehicle battery plant, and China behind it, Bob says. There is a story out of Michigan, the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom. That's England. They've got a story. Michigan Township Green Charter votes out its entire local government over China-linked EV battery maker Gotion. It's called Gotion, like motion, but with a G. Goshen's plan to build a factory there. Green Chartered Township's 5 board members were removed in a recall election. They were ousted because they backed this Chinese company, Gotion, and their new $2.3 billion electric vehicle battery plant, which they were going to build in Michigan right there in the town. It's gigantic. They have these drawings, and it's the size of a town, the factory. So the entire local government of a small Michigan township was voted out this week in a recall election over concerns about a Chinese affiliated company's plans to build an electric vehicle battery plant nearby. You know, their environmental standards for Chinese manufacturers, very, very low, not exactly environmentally friendly. And everything you use in an EV battery, electric vehicle battery, is toxic. There are a whole lot of toxic elements that go into your electric batteries. You know, if you drive a Tesla and you're broadsided at an intersection, and I hope you're not, and the battery cracks, the fire department immediately puts on gas masks and hazmat suits, and they call in the hazmat crew because the batteries are so toxic. By the way, solar panels are filled with more than 50 different toxins as well, but pay no attention to that because it's green, you know? Kill a whale for clean energy. How many dead whales on the East Coast now? I lost track at about, 55 dead whales washed up on shore where they're putting the windmills in and pile driving the stands into the ocean floor for their windmills. And they've killed more whales than Japan. But pay no attention to that. So in a special election on Tuesday, Green Charter Township's 5 council board members, who were all Republicans, were voted out in favor of candidates who ran without any party affiliation. The community of just 3,219 residents leans Republican and surrounded by a county that voted in favor of Donald Trump in 2020 and the presidential election by a margin of 22 percentage points. The petition that launched the recall election accused the town officials of ignoring voter concerns over the China-linked company, Gotion, and their plan to open a $2.3 billion electric vehicle plant there, which is expected to create 2,350 jobs. See, that's why the Republicans voted for it, apparently. Although it is backed by Volkswagen with operations in Germany, Gotion's parent company is based in China. And they've been accused of having links to the country's Communist Party. I saw an interview with one of the town leaders today saying it's not like they're linked to the town party. The bosses are Chinese Communist Party officials, and they're having none of it. So even though the people that voted for it originally were Republicans, boom, they've all been kicked out. So on Wednesday, News Nation Enton reported live from the town's empty government building after the incumbents hastily packed up their belongings. Get out and don't come back. So this is something Americans all across the country almost fantasize about, booting out their local government if they don't like them and if they're not getting the job done, he said to host Elizabeth Vargas. She's going to be one of the people from News Nation hosting the next Republican debate, the former ABC woman. So And it is true, something that Americans dream about across the country is kicking out your whole city council or county council in one day in a swift recall election. That's great. China is the leader in the global supply chain for advanced batteries and other green technology. They're so green that they're ripping up islands in Asia and using forced child labor to dig up all of the toxic elements that they need to be green. This green thing is more complicated than we had originally thought, I think. You know, the greenies in Europe are often called watermelons because they're green on the outside, but they're red on the inside. So they call them watermelons. So this is a great story, actually. And I'm sorry about the jobs and the economic boost, but you don't want the commie Chinese moving in on you. Building this plant is like the size of South Bend, Indiana, and takes up hundreds of acres. And the jobs don't saddle up with the commies because in the end, you'll get the commie treatment, and they're not the good guys. Goshen's plans for the Michigan plant, the Chinese company's plans for the Michigan plant, and another in Illinois, see, that's probably the one that Bob was talking about, have drawn scrutiny from congressional Republicans, but not Democrats who are in bed with the communists, who urged the Treasury Department to conduct a security review over Goshen's purported ties to China's Communist Party. So this is, this is good news. Take your Chinese communist electric vehicle toxic battery plant out of here and, use your slave labor in China to build them like you're doing now. We don't want the jobs from the communist Chinese. We don't. Goshen did not respond to a request for comment from the Daily Mail, but told News Nation, "We are a multinational company and don't believe in political posturing until we roll right over you, and are still committed to bringing thousands of jobs to the state of Michigan." Din-din-din-din-din-din. Boosh. See, were you waiting for the gong at the end? There she was. Michael Piercy was making body movements because he's waiting for the gong at the end. Don't trust the commies because the commies will destroy everything, steal everything from you, and then probably kill you. So there it is. And the plant is just, it's city blocks and city blocks and city blocks, and it's all toxic stuff. And, you get into bed with commies and, you get up with fleas and worse than that. Flea bitten. So we got that. That's a good story. And Bob called in another one in Illinois. Don't get into bed with the commies. Don't get into bed with the commies. Don't get into bed with the commies. Just saying. We have lots of audio for you today, as well as you might expect. And not only is today the birthday of the United States Marine Corps, but tomorrow is Veterans Day. It's 11/11, the 11th day of the 11th month at the 11th hour. The armistice that ended World War I, a war in which my grandfather fought, and U.S. Army, Sergeant, Purple Heart, other decorations. After my father died, a World War II veteran, we moved in with my grandfather and grandmother, my mother's parents, and he was very proud World War I veteran, American veteran, a great American patriot, a conservative, great American, a mentor to Mr. Paul Weyrich, the late, great Mr. Paul Weyrich, one of the founders of the Heritage Foundation, but never mind that. Enough about me. Yeah, we've got Joe Biden for you saying stupid stuff, and we got all kinds of wild stuff for you. That's for sure. And I haven't even talked about Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia. Did you see him on the television yesterday? He's had a complete makeover. I think he's got a stylist. He's got new hair. He might have had, some Botox. Or do you notice that? Did you look at him? He looked, Joe Manchin is kind of a rough and tumble guy. And yesterday it looked like he was doing advertisements for hair conditioner. But he's announced that he's not running for re-election, in large part because the Republican governor there, very, very wealthy man, Governor Justice, has announced he's running for the Senate. seat that Joe Manchin occupies. So he's announced, and Joe Manchin is doing poorly in the polls, and it looks like Governor Justice is doing very well, the Republican in the polls. He wants to take over that West Virginia Senate seat, and so Joe Manchin announced that he's out. He's out. He's not running for re-election, and then very quickly posted a video. We probably have some Joe Manchin, don't we? Well, since I'm talking about it now, why don't we go to Joe Manchin, because he's not the worst Democrat on Capitol Hill. But Joe Manchin announcing that he's not seeking re-election, but now he's going on a tour of the country. Did he buy a Winnebago? He's going on a tour of the country, and he's joining this, what are they called? I Can't Make Up My Mind movement. And they're talking about putting together a presidential ticket of Mittens Romney, and Joe Manchin to run under this No Labels brand for the presidency and the vice presidency of the United States. And this is going to be really bad news for the Democrats, which means they're both in danger, because no Trump supporter is going to say, hey, wait a minute. Now my alternative is Joe Biden or Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin. Gosh, what am I going to do now? No Trump voter is going to switch over to Mitt Romney and Joe Manchin. So that's not going to happen. But a lot of would-be Biden voters might very well switch over to a Romney, mostly Democrat most of the time, Joe Manchin ticket. The bad news for the Democrats, I don't think it's bad news for President Trump or for the Republicans. I really don't. Joe Manchin posted a video yesterday after his complete fashion makeover.
I've made one of the toughest decisions of my life and decided that I will not be running for re-election to the United States Senate.
Holy cow.
But what I will be doing is traveling the country and speaking out to see if there is an interest in creating a movement to mobilize the middle.
Mobilize the middle. Look, we also have RFK Jr. We've got who's running as an independent, apparently. And we've got a couple of other, we got the Green Party. What's that radical's name? She's nuts.
Cornel West.
Well, Cornel West is running. He's a radical leftist, too. Jill Stein, right? So you got the left is breaking up all over the place. And this Romney Manchin, if it actually does become a ticket that gets on ballots, bad news for the Democrat Party and Joe Biden if he is indeed the nominee next year. Not bad news for Donald Trump, assuming he will be the nominee next year as well. But you've got the RFK Jr. and you've got Jill Stein and you've got the Green Party. You've got all these factions in the Democrat Party. And again, the CNN poll, this is really bad news for the Democrats. The Washington Post doesn't have this story, but Breitbart does. CNN poll, majority say no chance they would vote for Joe Biden in 2024. Joe Biden is losing ground with the African-American vote. It's about time. You know, they're the party of slavery, the Confederacy, Jim Crow, and the Klan, but never mind that. What else? Losing ground with Hispanic voters, Latino voters. So all of this is bad news for the Democrats, and I don't really see any of this as being bad news for Republicans and for President Trump's candidacy at all. A majority of voters say there is no chance they would vote for President Joe Biden in 2024, a recent CNN poll found, increasing fear. They love the word fear. They love fear. Among Democrats, that swing voters, hey, swing voters, everybody puts their car keys in a fishbowl, and then when they go home, hey, which swing voter are you going home with? Swing voters ignore the president's talking points. 51% say there is no chance of voting for Joe Biden. 45% said that they were a Biden voter. And still they don't want to vote for him. Only 4% of voters in the CNN poll labeled themselves as potential Biden voters. That's pretty tough. 48% said there was no chance they'd vote for Trump. That's where Mittster and Joe Manchin come in. It's anarchy, it's chaos. It brings us much closer to the European model, with a bunch of parties running in different directions, which the left loves because they're the party of chaos, anarchy, and Kristallnacht.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Yeah, Joe Biden's poll numbers are terrible. Even Van Jones, who used to self-describe as a communist, I don't think anybody's asked him lately. Even he is in a panic about Joe Biden and the Democrats, and he's a radical and extremist and in the mainstream of the Democratic Party. Let's go to the telephones. Today is the Marine Corps birthday. Tomorrow, Veterans Day, 11/11. Plan accordingly. Let's go to James, calling from Gainesville, Virginia. James, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Mr. Plant.
James.
What an honor it is to speak to you this morning. Hey, you'll forgive me. I'm a little bit shaky, so I have to rely on my notes right here. If you just bear with me.
Sure.
At 62, I just finished jump school in preparation to jump in the 80th anniversary Normandy. I'm all beat up. I just got out of the hospital imagery. And I'm going to jump to honor folks like Lieutenant Ortega. Forgive me, did I say that correctly? Your dad.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
My dad who was World War II, Korea, Vietnam.
Wow.
And it's such an honor to speak to you. I'm so humbled right now. I don't even know what to say.
Well, you're going to jump out of a plane. You're going to jump out of a plane tomorrow?
No, I am jumping in preparation. I just finished jump school to qualify to jump into Normandy with the round canopy parachute team on D-Day, the 80th anniversary.
Wow.
And, if I can, I'm a member of the round canopy parachute team now. And our OIC is Colonel Bill Markham out of Palatka, Florida. And I don't even know where I'm going with this. I'm just grateful for this opportunity to say this to you. And I think enough said.
Well, I think that is really cool, James, that at the age of 62 and your father, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, is your father in Arlington National Cemetery? Maybe he's still with us. Is he still with us?
No, he's not. He passed. And if I can give you this last note, I did not know that my father was interned in a Japanese prison camp until I brought my wife to meet my mother after the passing of my dad.
Wow. Because they're humble and modest and didn't, they kept to themselves.